Imagine you hire a contractor to build your dream home, right?
Okay.
You review the blueprints, you pick out the finishes, and structurally, everything looks perfect on paper. But as the house goes up, you discover this staggering detail. 60% of the bricks they're using aren't actually bricks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they are blocks of styrofoam, just, chemically treated and painted to mimic the texture of fired clay.
Right.
And from a distance, the house looks perfectly normal. But the moment a storm hits, or just the slow, inevitable pressure of time takes its toll, that foundational illusion just collapses. And I bring this up because when it comes to the food we put into our bodies every single day, we are currently living inside that exact house.
We really are. And I think the most alarming part of that analogy is that we don't even realize we're buying the styrofoam.
Right.
We assume that because something is sold in a grocery store, wrapped in packaging that boasts all these health claims, that it's providing structural integrity to our biology. But the reality is just a complete illusion.
Which is exactly why we are pulling this apart today. Welcome to the deep dive, everyone. We are looking at some incredible insights from a transcript of Gary Brecka's Ultimate Human podcast, and we're focusing specifically on ultra-processed foods, or UPFs.
Yeah, it's such an important topic.
It really is, and I want to drop the anchor statistic right now, right at the top, because it completely frames the reality we are living in. 60%.
That's huge.
60% of the average American diet is now made up of these highly engineered, ultra-processed products.
It's just a monumental figure. I mean, we aren't talking about like a fringe dietary habit or an occasional indulgence at a baseball game, right?
No, not at all.
We are talking about the dominant way the human species in the modern world consumes its daily energy.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I want you, the listener, to just pause for a second. Think about your daily routine. From the oat milk in your morning coffee, to the protein bar you grab at the gym, to the pre-packaged meal you heat up when you're just exhausted after work. If 60% of the average diet is made of this stuff, how much of that styrofoam is sitting in your kitchen right now? Because it's so easy to say, like, oh, that's just fast food, I don't eat at the drive-thru, but this engineering is literally everywhere.
It is everywhere. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to realize this isn't a conversation about weight management, or fitting into a certain pair of jeans.
Right.
What we are looking at is a systemic, fundamental shift in human biochemistry. This shift is altering everything from our daily cognitive function to the literal integrity of our cellular DNA.
It's terrifying when you put it like that.
Well, it is. We are systematically replacing the nutritional building blocks of human life with industrial synthetic substitutes.
So, to really understand what we're actually up against, let's look at the anatomy of an ultra-processed food. Because we hear the word processed thrown around constantly, right?
Yeah, all the time.
But there is a massive biological chasm between traditional processing and industrial manufacturing.
Exactly. I mean, humans have been processing food for millennia.
Right, like baking bread or something.
Yeah, or think about pickling cabbage to make sauerkraut, or fermenting dairy to make kefir, or even just canning beans. Traditional processing was designed to preserve or even enhance the bioavailability of nutrients for the winter months.
Like actually making it better for you.
Exactly. Pickling introduces beneficial microbes. That is a biological process. Ultra-processed foods, on the other hand, are the result of industrial manufacturing.
Meaning they don't start with a whole food and preserve it. They start with a whole food and just, like, obliterate it.
Right. What's fascinating here is the sheer scale of the deconstruction. Take a kernel of corn, right? Or a grain of wheat. In an industrial plant, they don't just cook it.
What do they do?
They use intense mechanical and chemical processes, things like extrusion, bleaching, chemical hydrolysis, to actively strip away the fiber, the essential fatty acids, the vitamins. They reduce the food to isolated starches, refined sugars, and hydrogenated oils.
Wow.
And then they take those isolated biologically barren components and reassemble them into something that mimics food.
It reminds me of walking through a Hollywood studio backlot. You turn the corner and you see this beautiful, quintessential suburban house.
Yeah, the classic movie set.
Exactly. It's got painted shutters, a mailbox, a nice front porch. But if you walk around to the back, there's no house. It's just cheap plywood, scaffolding, and sandbags holding up a facade.
That is a perfect analogy.
Because that's what a UPF is, right? It's a biological facade. It poses as nourishment, but behind the brightly colored packaging, there is literally nothing your cells can actually use.
It's a highly accurate way to visualize it. Because when you strip away the fiber and the healthy fats, you are left with an empty vessel.
Mm.
It is an edible, industrially manufactured commodity, not food.
But, okay, if they are stripping all the natural value out of the raw ingredients, why do it?
Right.
Like, if the end result is devoid of natural nutrients, why are these products dominating our grocery stores?
It really comes down to the ultimate trade-off of the modern food industry, which is shelf life versus human life.
Shelf life versus human life.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. These products are engineered for extreme durability. And to achieve that unnatural durability, the industry relies on a massive arsenal of chemical additives.
We're talking preservatives and stuff?
Preservatives, artificial sweeteners, flavor enhancers, emulsifiers, colorings, the list goes on.
Let me jump in here and push back a little bit, because if you're listening to this while commuting to a 10-hour shift, or, you're a parent shuffling kids between 3 different schools, convenience isn't just a luxury, it's a survival tactic.
Absolutely. I completely understand that.
Not everyone has the time to soak lentils overnight or roast an organic chicken on a Tuesday evening. Aren't these shelf-stable foods just a necessary reality of a busy modern world?
Look, the convenience is undeniably real, and it's exactly why these products have captured 60% of our diet. But we have to look at the exact physiological cost of that convenience.
Okay, lay it out for us.
Let's look at the biology of those additives you mentioned, specifically emulsifiers and preservatives. Biological matter, like real food, is meant to decay.
Right, and apple rots.
Exactly. Bacteria and enzymes break it down. That's natural. Preservatives are chemicals designed to halt enzymatic activity and halt microbial growth. So a product can sit in a warehouse for 2 years without molding.
Okay, I'm following you.
But human digestion relies on enzymatic activity and microbial breakdown. So when you consume a food soaked in chemicals designed to stop biological breakdown, you are putting a biologically inert substance into a highly active biological system. You are literally stalling your own cellular machinery.
Oh, wow, I never thought about it like that. Okay, that makes sense for preservatives. But what about emulsifiers? Because we see things like soy lecithin or polysorbates on almost every single protein bar and oat milk label.
Oh, they are everywhere.
They just make things creamy, right? Like, what's the danger there?
This is where the chemistry gets deeply problematic. Emulsifiers are amphiphilic molecules. That means they bind water and fat together so they don't separate on the shelf.
Right, that's why your packaged dressing doesn't separate into oil and vinegar in the fridge.
Exactly. But think about your gut. Your entire intestinal wall is protected by a crucial, delicate mucosal lining. It's a barrier that lets nutrients in but keeps pathogens out.
And it's a liquid mucus barrier, right?
Yes. And what do we use to wash grease off a frying pan at home?
Dish soap.
We use dish detergent, which is essentially a powerful emulsifier. It binds the water to the fat and strips the pan clean.
Wait.
When you consume high amounts of industrial emulsifiers, they don't stop working just because you swallowed them. They act like a detergent on your intestinal wall. They wash away that protective mucosal layer.
Wait, are you saying the exact chemical that keeps my protein shake looking smooth is actively stripping the protective lining off my stomach and intestines?
Yes, that is exactly what happens. And when that lining is stripped, you get microscopic scratches from passing food particles. You develop intestinal permeability, which is commonly known as leaky gut.
I've heard of that.
Yeah. Pathogens and undigested proteins slip right into your bloodstream, and your immune system goes into overdrive, triggering chronic systemic inflammation.
So when I grab that boxed meal because I'm just exhausted, I am making a direct physical trade. I am trading the integrity of my gut lining for the convenience of not having to cook.
You are. You are taking out a physiological loan against your own health.
Mm-hmm.
And the interest rates are just staggering because this engineering doesn't just make the food last longer. It actively manipulates your brain chemistry so you consume more of it.
And here's where it gets really interesting, because the data from the sources points to a massive caloric illusion. The deep dive material defines these foods as energy dense but nutrient poor.
Right.
And it brings up the bag of chips phenomenon, which I think every single person listening has experienced. You open a massive family-sized bag of chips, you eat the whole thing, you've just consumed over 1,000 calories.
Easily 1,000 calories, yeah.
And yet 20 minutes later, you are looking in the fridge because you still feel hungry. How is that biologically possible?
This raises such an important question about how our biology regulates appetite. You have hormones like ghrelin, which tells you you're hungry, and leptin, which tells you you're full. You also have physical stretch receptors in your stomach.
Okay.
But the system is designed to look for nutrients, not just bulk calories. The brain specifically registers fullness when it receives adequate fiber, protein, and essential fatty acids.
The exact three things that industrial manufacturing strips out of the food to make it shelf-stable.
Exactly. So look at the mechanics of what happens when you eat that bag of chips. You are flooding your system with refined starches and oxidized seed oils. Your brain registers the calories, sure, but it realizes it didn't get any of the structural building blocks it actually needs.
Wow.
It didn't get any omega-3s for cell repair. It didn't get any amino acids. So the brain essentially says, okay, that was a lot of energy, but we are still missing the actual materials we need to survive. Send another hunger signal.
It's a biological trap. The body keeps crying out for vitamins, and we keep tossing it empty chemical styrofoam. No wonder the body keeps asking for more food.
It is a vicious cycle of overconsumption.
Yeah.
The food industry knows this. These products are engineered to be hyper-palatable.
Hyper-palatable.
Yeah. They are formulated with the exact mathematically precise ratio of sugar, salt, and fat, often called the bliss point, to bypass your brain's natural satiety centers and trigger a massive dopamine release.
So if you're listening to this and you're frustrated because you can never just eat one cookie, or you feel like you lack willpower around snacks, you need to give yourself some grace here.
Absolutely.
You are not fighting a lack of discipline. You are fighting billions of dollars of laboratory engineering designed specifically to hack your neurological reward system.
And the epidemiological data confirms exactly how effective this hack is. The 2020 review that Gary Brecka highlights in the podcast transcript confirms that people consuming UPFs simply eat significantly more total calories than those on whole food diets.
I mean, it makes sense.
And the result? People who consume large amounts of these foods are 39% more likely to become obese.
39%. And it's not just because the food has calories, it's because the food is literally overriding their ability to stop eating.
Precisely. And this chronic overconsumption of cellular carbohydrates and synthetic additives doesn't just store excess adipose tissue on the body. It drops a bomb on the foundational center of our well-being, which is the gut microbiome.
Which brings us back to the gut, where that detergent-like emulsifier was doing all its damage earlier. The gut is everything, isn't it?
It really is.
The source goes deep into how the gut dictates our energy, our immune response, and our baseline health. But the symptoms of a disrupted gut are so normalized now. We're talking about daily bloating, gas, chronic constipation.
Yeah, people just live with it.
Right.
Right.
But also things people blame on their lifestyle, like afternoon fatigue, brain fog, and chronic irritability.
We have completely normalized feeling terrible. When your gut is inflamed by these foods, you are experiencing chronic dysbiosis. The beneficial bacteria, the ones that digest fiber and produce anti-inflammatory compounds, are literally starved to death because you aren't feeding them fiber.
Okay.
Meanwhile, the pathogenic inflammatory bacteria absolutely thrive on the refined sugars you are dumping into the system. The bad bacteria multiply, take over the real estate, and begin emitting endotoxins that leak into your bloodstream.
Now, I want to act as a proxy for the listener here because the source material gets highly specific about an intervention. Gary Brecka talks about the Ultimate Gut Reset Challenge.
Right.
It's a 3-day live program starting October 28th to rebuild gut health, incorporating daily meal plans and very specific tools like body health supplements, Baja Gold Salt, and Echo Hydrogen Water. Let me be the skeptic for a second.
Go for it.
If I've been eating heavily processed foods for 2 decades, can a targeted 3-day reset, even using high-end trace minerals like Baja Gold Salt or hydrogen-infused water, actually do anything? Or is 3 days just a drop in the ocean?
It's a completely fair question. And while we aren't here to, endorse the specific commercial brands or programs, we need to unpack the biological mechanics of rapid gut interventions. Why 3 days?
Right. Why?
Biologically speaking, the cells that line your intestinal tract, the enterocytes, have an incredibly rapid turnover rate. They regenerate every 3 to 5 days.
Wait, really? Your entire gut lining replaces itself that fast?
It does. It's one of the most highly regenerative tissues in the human body. So if you completely remove the inflammatory triggers, the emulsifiers, the refined sugars, the artificial colors, and simultaneously flood the system with structured whole foods to feed the good bacteria,
Okay.
and deep cellular hydration to flush out the endotoxins, you can fundamentally alter the environment of your gut in a matter of days.
So the hydrogen water and the specific mineral salts aren't magic potions. They are just highly efficient tools to maximize cellular hydration and provide the electrical charge, the electrolytes the cells need to flush the waste out during that specific turnover window.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You have to abruptly break the physiological cycle of inflammation. You are essentially starving the bad bacteria and giving the newly forming enterocytes a clean, non-toxic environment to grow in. It is a scientifically sound concept. You need a concentrated, multi-pronged intervention to shock the system back into a state of balance.
That is incredibly empowering. It means you aren't permanently broken no matter how much junk food you've eaten.
Not at all.
I want you to do a self-audit as you listen to this. Do you hit a wall at 2:00 p.m. every single day? Do you feel sluggish, irritable, and foggy? We blame our mattress, we blame our boss, we pour another cup of coffee, but the reality is the distress signal might be coming straight from your lower intestine.
And if the gut is sending out those distress signals, we have to look at where those signals are being received, which forces us to confront the profound mind-body disconnect. If your gut is inflamed, your brain is inflamed.
This was the part of the data that completely stopped me in my tracks.
Yeah, it's wild.
We know soda makes you gain weight. We rarely talk about soda giving you clinical depression. The transcript cites a massive 2022 systematic review of observational studies published in the journal Nutrients.
Right.
It conclusively found that consumers of ultra-processed foods are 1.44 times more likely to develop anxiety and 1.44 times more likely to suffer from depression compared to people eating whole foods.
Almost a 50% increase in the risk of clinical anxiety and depression, directly correlated to industrial food consumption.
How is this happening mechanically? I know people use the analogy of putting cheap gas in a luxury car, but that doesn't really explain what's happening to the neurons, you know? How does a brightly colored breakfast cereal translate into a panic attack or a depressive episode?
Well, we have to look at the roller coaster effect of glucose and the structural starvation of the brain. First, let's look at structure. The human brain is nearly 60% fat.
Okay.
To maintain cell membranes, to build myelin sheaths around nerves, and to properly synthesize neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine, your brain requires a constant supply of high-quality omega-3 fatty acids.
Which, as we established, are entirely stripped out of UPFs because fats go rancid on the shelf.
Precisely. So structurally, you're starving your brain of the exact material it needs to regulate mood. Now, add the second mechanism, the glucose roller coaster.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, you eat a highly processed refined carbohydrate snack. Because there is no fiber to slow down digestion, that sugar is absorbed instantly into your bloodstream. Your blood sugar violently spikes.
Which feels like a rush of energy, right?
For about 20 minutes. But then your pancreas panics. It detects this massive toxic load of glucose in the blood, so it pumps out a huge surge of insulin to clear the sugar. But because the insulin response is so aggressive, it pulls too much sugar out of the blood. Your blood sugar violently crashes. You enter a state of hypoglycemia.
And what does the brain do when it realizes it suddenly has no energy?
It registers it as a life-threatening emergency. To quickly free up stored energy, your adrenal glands pump out cortisol and adrenaline.
Adrenaline, like the fight-or-flight hormone.
Yes. Your heart rate increases. Your breathing gets shallow. You feel jittery, tense, and deeply anxious. You are subjecting your nervous system to a daily, manufactured physiological panic attack just to process the snack you ate.
That is insane.
And over time, this constant flooding of cortisol and adrenaline downregulates your mood receptors. It leads to chronic irritability, adrenal fatigue, and eventually depressive symptoms.
It is a terrifying biological manipulation, and it creates the ultimate vicious cycle. Because what do we do when we feel anxious or depressed?
We reach for comfort food.
Exactly. We want that temporary dopamine hit from a hyper-palatable, ultra-processed food, which spikes the blood sugar, leading to the crash, leading to the adrenaline dump, worsening the depression. The food that is engineered to make you physically overeat is actively breaking down your mental resilience.
It is a closed loop. And remember the gut connection we discussed. The vagus nerve directly connects your gut microbiome to your brain.
Right.
If the bad bacteria in your gut are producing inflammatory cytokines, these tiny chemical messengers of inflammation, they travel right up the vagus nerve and cross the blood-brain barrier. Neuroinflammation is now recognized as a primary driver of depression.
So if you battle mood swings or anxiety, please take a breath and realize that it might not be a character flaw. It might not just be the stress of your inbox. Your anxiety might be a direct chemical neuroinflammatory response to the drive-through window you visited at lunch.
And as severe as that daily afternoon brain fog and anxiety is, it is only the short-term impact. When we look at the compounding long-term biological toll, the reality becomes much darker. We're talking about irreversible chronic disease.
The numbers presented in the source material are just staggering. A 125% increased risk of chronic kidney disease, a massive spike in cardiovascular disease and type 2 diabetes. But the one that genuinely terrified me?
The dementia stat.
Yes, a 144% higher risk of developing dementia for people who consume high amounts of UPFs.
A 144% increase in the destruction of cognitive function. It's hard to even wrap your head around.
So what does this all mean? Look, I understand the heart disease link. We all learned in high school that eating too much junk food clogs your arteries. But dementia?
Right.
And the source also points to a British medical journal study linking UPF consumption to higher cancer risks, specifically colorectal cancer, citing actual DNA damage. How does a packaged pastry cause dementia and physically break human DNA?
Let's break down the dementia connection first, because it is deeply tied to the heart disease you just mentioned. It all comes back to vascular health. When you constantly consume refined sugars and oxidized industrial seed oils, you create advanced glycation end products.
Advanced glycation end products.
AGEs.
AGEs. These compounds damage the endothelial lining the inner wall of your blood vessels. They cause systemic inflammation, leading to plaque buildup. We understand that if this happens in the heart, it causes a heart attack, right?
Right.
But your brain contains hundreds of miles of microscopic blood vessels. It is the most energy-hungry organ in the body, requiring massive amounts of oxygen and blood flow.
So if your vascular system is compromised by inflammation from these foods,
You're slowly, incrementally suffocating the brain. The microvessels in the brain become stiff and blocked. Neurons are starved of oxygen and nutrients. Over decades, this vascular compromise leads to neuron death, brain atrophy, and vascular dementia. The dementia isn't starting in your 60s, it is building up meal by meal, day by day, through vascular inflammation. It's a slow strangulation of the brain's infrastructure.
Okay, but what about the cancer risk? The DNA damage. That implies these chemicals are getting directly into the nucleus of our cells.
And they are. The transcript specifically calls out the high levels of chemical preservatives, artificial colors, and nitrates used in these foods. Let's look at nitrates, which are heavily used in processed meats to keep them looking pink and fresh on the shelf.
Like hot dogs and deli meats.
Exactly. When you ingest synthetic nitrates, they interact with the amino acids in your stomach acid to form nitrosamines.
And what are nitrosamines?
They are potent carcinogens. They induce severe oxidative stress. Imagine taking a blowtorch to the microscopic structures inside your cell.
Oh my God.
This oxidative stress produces free radicals that bounce around the cell, physically striking and breaking the strands of your DNA.
Literally snapping the genetic code. Yes. Normally your body has mechanisms to repair DNA. But if you are constantly bombarding the system with these chemicals, the repair mechanisms fail. A cell with damaged DNA replicates improperly. That mutated replication is the genesis of a tumor.
And because your digestive tract is where this is happening.
Right, specifically your colon. It is the first and longest point of contact for these chemical agents. So it is no surprise that the British Medical Journal study highlighted a massive spike in colorectal cancer.
This shifts the entire conversation. We have to stop talking about this as a diet or a weight loss issue. This is a critical, urgent safety issue. These additives are biologically active agents that degrade cellular integrity.
Completely.
Every single meal you eat is a compounding vote for your future. You are either voting for cellular regeneration or you are voting for neuroinflammation and DNA mutation.
It is a stark, terrifying reality.
Oh.
But the beauty of the source material and the reason we are doing this deep dive is that we are not helpless. The data shows us exactly how the machine works, which means we know exactly how to break it.
Yes. Which brings us to the most important part of this entire conversation, breaking the cycle. The transcript gives us highly actionable, immediate strategies, and the most foundational rule is incredibly simple. Buy more whole foods.
It sounds basic, but it is a biological imperative. Whole foods, fresh fruits, vegetables, whole grains, lean proteins, nuts, seeds still possess their original structural matrix. The fiber hasn't been chemically severed from the sugar.
And to make that practical, the source offers my absolute favorite navigational tactic for the modern world. Shop the perimeter. You limit the packaged foods by physically keeping your shopping cart on the outer edges of the grocery store.
It's a brilliant heuristic because of how grocery stores are architecturally designed. The fresh produce, the butcher, the dairy, the seafood, they all require refrigeration. They require supply chains that move quickly before the food decays. They live on the walls.
Right.
The brightly colored, highly processed, shelf-stable commodities are stacked in the middle aisles.
I love how this turns grocery shopping into a simple game of geographical avoidance. You don't have to stand there for 10 minutes trying to decipher health claims on a cereal box, trying to figure out if all natural actually means anything. If you are standing in aisle 5, you are in the danger zone. Hug the walls and you survive.
And when you rely on the perimeter, it naturally forces the next strategy: cook at home and meal prep. By preparing your own food, you reclaim total sovereignty over your ingredients. You control the oil. You control the salt.
Yeah.
The source recognizes that we're all time poor, which is why meal prepping is so critical. You have to front-load the effort on a Sunday so that when you are exhausted on a Wednesday night, convenience doesn't drive you back into the arms of the ultra-processed food industry.
And let's be realistic, you are going to buy things in packages sometimes. But when you do, the source offers the 5-ingredient rule. You turn the package around and read the label. If there are more than 5 ingredients and you can't pronounce them, you put it back.
It is the ultimate litmus test. If it reads like an industrial chemistry manual rather than an agricultural product, your body's not going to recognize it as food.
But let's look at what happens biologically when you make this shift. When someone starts shopping the perimeter and cooking their own meals, they aren't just stopping the damage, right?
No, it is a highly active process of regeneration. Remember those short-chain fatty acids we talked about earlier?
Yeah.
When you reintroduce intact whole food fiber into your diet, it reaches your colon undigested. Your beneficial bacteria feast on it and produce a compound called butyrate. Butyrate actively heals the gut lining, reduces inflammation, and travels up the vagus nerve to calm the brain.
So you are swapping out the chemical detergent that was tearing up your gut and replacing it with the very biological materials your body needs to patch the holes and lower the alarms in your brain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You are stopping the oxidative stress that damages your DNA, and you are providing the essential fatty acids your brain desperately needs to repair its vascular network. You are dismantling the styrofoam house and rebuilding it with real load-bearing stone.
I want to give everyone listening a tangible challenge for the next time you walk into a grocery store. Walk right down one of those center aisles, pick up your absolute favorite packaged snack, the one you always reach for when you're stressed, turn it over and look at the ingredient list.
Yeah, do it.
Look for the emulsifiers, look for the artificial colors. Once you see the underlying chemistry project, the illusion of food is broken forever.
It is the first step in developing true health literacy.
Let's bring this all together. We started by looking at the sheer scale of the problem: 60% of our diet engineered in industrial plants. We pulled back the curtain on the grand trade-off, where food corporations use detergents and preservatives to extend shelf life, sacrificing our biological machinery in the process.
We examined how they mathematically hack our satiety hormones, creating a caloric illusion that drives the obesity epidemic. And we traced the devastating downstream effects. The systemic inflammation that starts with gut dysbiosis shoots up the vagus nerve to create neuroinflammation.
And ultimately drives the compounding risks of dementia, vascular disease, and DNA mutation.
Yes.
But we also illuminated the way out: shopping the perimeter,
Yeah.
relying on the 5-ingredient rule, feeding the gut the fiber it needs to heal itself.
Which all culminates in a very specific, profound realization. The food industry is spending billions of dollars to chemically engineer products that bypass your neurological defenses. They want you overfed, undernourished, and constantly consuming at the expense of your own cellular health. In that context, choosing to eat an apple or taking the time to cook a simple piece of fish isn't just a diet choice anymore.
What is it?
It is a daily, profound act of rebellion.
A daily act of rebellion. I love that. You are literally taking your physiological power back from an industrial complex. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. The 60% styrofoam house does not have to be the home you live in. You now have the awareness, the science, and the exact tools to rebuild your foundation. See you next time.